Okay, hi Michael.
Hi.
Today's question says, in your case, Michael, you have a function here that stimulates or is motivating for the main purpose of turning within completely to fully recognize ourselves for who we really are. To what extent is it or is it not necessary to fulfill a function in this world that enhances our main purpose? If someone works in a weapon factory or in a meat company, they could reach the end of this path.
Ultimately, what the work we do is determined by prarabdha. It's not in our hands. And whatever work is all to do with activity. Self-investigation is about turning the mind within. So it is not affected by any activity the body, speech, or mind may be doing. If our attention is turned within, we can let these things go on according to the destiny. It has no impact on us. This is why Bhagavan says, I'm now starting at the very highest level answer, and then we'll come down a little to maybe more fitting to the state we're in now. But what Bhagavan says in the 13th paragraph of Nana, he says, he defines what surrender is. But surrender is being so keenly fixed in self-attentiveness, but we give not even the slightest room to the rising of other thoughts. That is giving ourselves to God. That is surrender. That's the basic meaning of that verse. So this is what we are aiming for. So our sole aim should be to turn our attention within. The more we turn our attention within, the less scope there will be for other thoughts to arise, because other thoughts rise only when we attend to them. And actions of speech and body follow on from actions of mind. That is it. Action begins in the mind, goes on to the speech and to the body. So if we are turning our attention within so keenly, but we give no room to the rising of any other thoughts, all activity will come to an end. That is from our point of view. From the onlooker's point of view, it may seem that our body, speech, and mind are continuing to act, because according to prarabdha, they will act in whatever way they are destined to act. So that is why in the third sentence of that 13th paragraph, Bhagavan says, when we know that one Parameshwara Shakti is driving all karyas, that is, everything that's meant to happen is being made to happen by that one supreme power, why should we, instead of yielding ourselves to it, be constantly thinking it's necessary to do like this, it's necessary to do like that? So the highest, what we are aiming for is to attain that state where we give no room, where we are so keenly self-attentive, but we give no room to the rising of any other thoughts. And therefore, we have no concern about whether it's necessary to do this or that. That is what we're aiming for. However, most of us, because we still have strong Vishaya vasanas, we are not able to be so keenly self-attentive. We turn our attention within them and again gets dragged out by vasanas, and again we draw it within and again it gets dragged outwards. So this is the stage of sadhana, of practice. So when we are practicing, we still, when our attention goes outwards, we experience ourselves as this body, or the body-mind bundle, that is the 5 sheaths. So long as we experience ourselves as these 5 sheaths, whatever actions may be done by body, speech, or mind are experienced by us as actions done by us. This is how the sense of doership is, it is a feature of ego. So long as we rise as ego, we identify ourselves with the 5 sheaths, and consequently we have a sense of doership. So because we have this sense of doership, it seems to us that we have a choice, whether to do this or to do that. We do have a certain amount of choice in what we do. We don't have any choice. I mean, we cannot whatever we may want and whatever we may do according to our desires, we cannot change what is destined to happen. What is destined to happen, that alone is going to happen. But we do have the freedom to try for to try to achieve things, whether they're destined or not. So at this stage, it seems when our attention is going outwards, we seem to be the doer of actions, and we seem to have a choice whether we do this or do that. Our aim should be trying to turn our attention within. When we turn our attention within, we are not coming under the sway of our Vishaya Vasanas. So whatever actions are done by body, speech, and mind will be according to Prarabdha. But because we allow our attention to come outwards, we are, to a greater or lesser extent, being swayed by our Vasanas. So we seem to have to be often faced with a dilemma. Should I act like this or should I act like that? As a general rule, we should try to act ethically. We should try to do only those actions which are not causing harm to others. So, for example, working in an arms factory or in a meat processing place, we are involved in an activity that is directly or indirectly causing harm to others, or potentially causing harm to others. So that is not appropriate. So long as we have that feeling that we have a choice, and so long as we have likes and dislikes and so on, we should choose. We should always choose the ethical option. Ethical here means the option that causes least harm to others. But generally speaking, our destiny is tailor-made. Well, actually, not generally speaking, always our destiny is tailor-made to suit our present stage of spiritual development. So as a general rule, we will not have a destiny to do something that is against our nature. Like if we want to if our nature is, because we're following the spiritual path, our nature is to not cause harm to others. As a general rule, we won't end up in a situation where we're doing a job that causes harm to others. So supposing we are unemployed and we desperately in search of work, we may find work is available, say in an arms factory or a meat processing plant or something. But that goes against our principles of not causing harm to others. So we should try to avoid such things. They may, under very exceptional circumstances, it may turn out that we have no choice. For example, supposing we are working as a slave, we may be enslaved and forced to work in an arms factory or meat processing plant. If we've been enslaved, we have little option. But most of us, we do have the choice. So we can choose to remain unemployed rather than do something that we consider unethical. So we have to choose our actions. We have to try to act ethically as far as possible. Another very practical thing Bhagavan used to say, sometimes people asked him, Bhagavan, should I do this? How sometimes people say, Bhagavan, how to know what is the appropriate course of action, whether we should do like this or should do like that. Bhagavan said, why should you do anything? Just keep quiet. That doesn't mean we don't do, the body, speech, and mind don't do any actions, but they will do, because they will obviously be driven to act according to destiny. But as far as possible, we should try to desist from action. But in this context, Bhagavan gave a nice clue. He said, whatever activities come, you should reject. reject in the sense you avoid those activities. Bhagavan said, reject, reject, reject. And what comes and sits on your head, in spite of your rejecting it, that is your destiny. That's a very simple guide. That is, as far as possible, we should try to avoid unnecessary activities, or any activities that we can avoid, we should try to avoid. But even if after trying to avoid certain activities, if those activities, we are still forced into doing those activities, then that is our destiny. That's what he meant by after rejecting, rejecting, rejecting. If in spite of all your rejecting, that activity still comes and sits on your head, that is your destiny. So yes, we should try to avoid involving in activities that can potentially cause harm to others. If it is our destiny to do so, we won't be able to avoid. But as far as possible, we should try to avoid. If we are forced into doing it, then that's destiny. Because we can't tell what actions are according to destiny and what actions are according to our will. So our desire should be, to the extent that we are have to act, we should want to act only in an ethical way, only in a way that doesn't cause harm to others. But whether many jobs that people do are neither particularly ethical nor particularly unethical. You have a routine, mundane job. You have to go to the office every day and work from 9 to 5, and then you come home. And it's not particularly good action or particularly bad action. If that is your destiny, that won't interfere. That is the key to this spiritual practice. We should have great interest to turn within. If we have great interest to turn within, whatever work may be our destiny, that will not interfere with our efforts to turn within. Now, that is, however busy we are with our job, we all have other interests. We may be interested in politics, so we read the newspaper, or we may be interested in football, so we go, when we have some leisure time, we go to a football match. We all find time for leisure activities, or for maybe when we come home from work, we feel tired and we just sit and watch the television or something. These are all activities that are not necessary. We do those activities. Why do we sit and watch the television? Because we find it interesting. So ultimately, all the activities we do in our leisure time are the things that interest us. So if we have interest in knowing ourselves, we will be interested in trying to turn our attention within. So that is the key to it. It is that interest we have in turning within. That is what is called bhakti, and bhakti is the key. If we don't have that bhakti, if we don't have that liking to turn within, then we're not going to turn within. We may give up other activities, but we're still not going to turn within, because we don't really have that liking to turn within. If we have that liking to turn within, whatever other activities we may be destined to do, they cannot prevent us turning within. Does this adequately answer this question?
Yeah, I think so. And I think what you said, that if we are followers of Bhagavan, and whenever we are offered a job like that, as you said, which is particularly bad, for example, in this case, like a weapon factory or something like that, and then we should have, there would be like a red flag raised in our consciousness, something like, oh, this is not the path I want to go. So I might reject that job. And as you say, after several rejections, it comes back again, and it's our job. Maybe we have to do that, but it's, it wouldn't be something like.
But an important point is Bhagavan's path is the path, who am I? That is a research, that is an investigation of being, what we are. So we shouldn't give too much, pay too much attention to doing, because whatever is to be done is going to happen anyway. So let us not be too concerned about activity. What we need to be concerned about is, who am I? That we should be investigating, what is my being? Not so our concern should be about being, not about doing. If we are concerned about being, the activities will take care of themselves. They'll go on according to prarabdha. But the problem is we take so much interest in the activities. But why do we take interest in activities? Because we think from this activity I will achieve this or I'll achieve that. And because of our interest in those other things, we do actions. That is behind every inclination to act is an inclination to experience something as a result of that action. So it's all a matter of interest. If our interest is in things other than ourselves, our mind will be going outwards and we will be engaged in activity. So long as that is the case, I mean, we all have Vishayavasana, we all have that inclination to attend to other things. We are trying to curb that, but they're still there. So we should try to, so as long as we're engaged in activities, we should try to be engaged in ethical activities. We should try not to be harming others. We should try to be kind to others and kind and considerate and empathetic and so on.
Yes, it seems like that we are, it's exactly, the practice is being, is not doing. We know from Bhagavan's teaching that no doing is going to give us realization, for sure.
Yes.
But we seem to be concerned about the ethics of our doings more than turning within.
That is, of course, ethics are important, but then ethics are necessary only so long as we're turning outwards. The most ethical action of all is turning within, because when we turn within, ego subsides. And the source of all unethical activity is ego. So the most virtuous action is turning our attention within and thereby surrendering ourselves.
Yes, and what is the importance of those values, like those ethical values that, for example, appear in the Bhagavad Gita when Krishna tells Arjuna like 20 qualities of the mind that have to be acquired in order to, because Bhagavan doesn't seem to be so specific. He mentions hymns, of course.
In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna begins with the highest teachings. In chapter 2, he teaches the very highest teachings. Basically, he's teaching you're not this body, you are that. And that is it's the essence of Vedanta he's giving in chapter 2. Then in later chapters, he comes down to other levels because Arjuna is unwilling to take all those things on board. So Bhagavan is also the same. Bhagavan always, when people first start asking questions, he first tries to prompt them to turn within and investigate themselves. When they're not willing to do so, then he will slowly come down to their level. So many different teachings, there are many different levels of teaching which are appropriate to people of different levels of spiritual maturity. When Paramahamsa Yogananda, the one who went to America and who had a big following in America, in the 1930s, he came to Bhagavan. And one of the questions he asked Bhagavan was, what teachings are to be given for the uplift of humanity? And Bhagavan says, there can be no instruction en masse. The teachings have to be according to the maturity of those who are taught. If we go out and try and teach everyone Atma-vichara, they're not going to be interested. It's only a minority will be attracted to this path. So for other people who have other interests, other concerns, other types of teachings are appropriate. This is why in spirituality and in religion, there are so many different philosophies and practices and everything. They're to suit the needs of different people. So Bhagavad Gita is a very useful text because it covers such a wide range. Exactly. There's something for everyone in the Bhagavad Gita, whatever their level may be.
So basically, what you're saying is that, like just like Bhagavan Krishna said in this chapter, that chapter, he's aiming at being the most important practice, or
Yeah,
I guess, and then when Arjuna doesn't is not willing
yeah, yeah,
to follow that practice, or so, he
yeah,
always down to say, okay, so look at your doings, what you do, the ethicals of your doing,
yeah, yeah.
and work on that first. No,
Yes,
like
yes.
it's like okay, yeah, but and also
That
another
is,
problem is,
even in the later chapters where higher teachings are there, because he's always trying to push him to that to that deepest level, but the it gets diluted and adapted according to the questions that Arjuna is asking. Because Arjuna is in a great state of dilemma. That his initial thing is how can I fight? These are all my relatives, my gurus, my elders, people I respect. How can I fight with these people?
and it seems to me that some Advaita teachers put all those on the same level, like ethics and being are on the same level. It's you have to work.
No, we need to, that's very important when we read any spiritual teachings, even when we read Bhagavan's teachings, because Bhagavan, we know what Bhagavan's core teachings are, what he says in Ullurunaptu and such places. But there are many other things Bhagavan said when people ask questions, because Bhagavan adapted his answers according to the needs of individuals. So we need to understand that teachings are at different levels. So we shouldn't confuse teachings at different levels. Otherwise, we'll say, oh, there's so much contradiction. Here he said that, and here he said that. How can he contradict himself? If we understand why, in each context, why it is said as it is said, then we will see. But what appear to be contradictions are not actually contradictions. Because everyone has to be guided from the level at which they are. But the aim is one. The aim ultimately is to annihilate ego.
And I've also met people who have this dilemma, like as you said, like I don't know, I'm deciding whether to go to the highest, or I should practice first on this kind of ethics and so on, all the things are as if should this go this way or that way? No,
well, if we're aiming for the highest, we're still trying to live ethically. We don't leave ethics behind, but it's just we have a higher standard of ethics. The root of all unethical activity, all selfish activity, is our rising as ego. So we're going right to the root of all of all ethical issues. If we didn't rise as ego, there would be no ethical issues. So let us not rise as ego. How not to rise as ego? By turning within.
Yeah, it's like I understand also that if we follow Bhagavan's path with, if you apply you understand and believe the law of karma, you try to surrender as much as you can your outer life, and your actions, and so on, and you try to turn within. There is not much room to for questions about life or how to behave in life, or how to, because everything's pre-planned. You just go within. Of course, you live ethically and so on. But exactly, it's not. But the problem is that, as you said, the sense of doership again. That okay, I'm presented this choice. So
if we surrender, there'll be no questions. There'll be no dilemmas. But when we ask questions, it's because we've not yet surrendered.